Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome to the Business Innovators Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Brown. My guest today is Steve Werner, a professional speaker and trainer, and the founder of Monetize Your Tribe, where he works with coaches, entrepreneurs, and small businesses to help them turn their passion into a full-time lifestyle through professional speaking events. Steve is on a mission to help 100 entrepreneurs, influencers, and coaches grow their business through holding a small event for maximum profit and impact in a single weekend. And he joins us today to let us in on that vision. Steve, welcome to the show.
Rick, thank you so much for having me. That was an amazing intro. I don't know if I could do any better than that myself.
That's all you, man. Hey, tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got from there to here.
Sure. So I grew up in the restaurant world and I went to college, had a business in college doing real estate, ended up back in restaurants, specifically though in the event side. So I worked for the Marriott, I worked for Four Seasons, and then Vail Resorts hired me and I came out and I ran their fine dining restaurant and their high-end events. So high-end corporate events, anywhere from 20 to 2,000 CEO style people. I ran events for 5 years for them. I got really good at events. And then I decided I got that bug, right? And I was like, I have to go out. I have to do my own business. What am I going to do? I want to help people. I want to help people grow their businesses. What do I really know? And I knew events. So I moved to Las Vegas and I decided to hold an event. The first event that I held completely crashed and burned through my.
And this was your own event?
Oh yeah, this was totally my own. I went down to Treasure Island. I rented space for 1,000 people. I thought, I've run events this size. I know how to run the event. The marketing's the easy part, right? I couldn't have been further from the truth. The marketing was the hard part. And so that first event completely crashed and burned. I burned through about $25,000. I had to beg them not to hold me to my minimums because I hadn't sold any tickets. Canceled the event. But that led me on this growth curve. That was 2014. That led me on this growth curve of learning about live events. And then 2016, it took me to speaking. And so I started speaking at all of my own events, plus on other people's events. I was holding events in 2016. My events were about 500 people. And I started getting the feedback that they wanted smaller events. They wanted more time with the speakers. They actually wanted to ask questions. They wanted it to be more workshop style. So as time progressed, my events actually got smaller and smaller. But what ended up happening was the ticket price went up, but I also was able to serve them better. So most of the events that I hold now are between 15 and 40 people. They're small, intimate events, and they lead to a high ticket sale on the back end, which has been a much better business model, a lot less stress, a lot easier to manage. And it gets better results for people. I mean, we've all been to an event where you go in, right, and you sit down and it's 2,000 people and you're like, oh, I'm going to go get some coffee.
Yeah.
Events are completely opposite of that. They're highly engaging. People leave with powerful takeaways, and it leads. My average close rate is 50 to 70% on a high ticket offer of $10,000 or more.
Yeah, that's nice. So smaller by design, but that leads to a more intimate setting and a better opportunity for you to engage one-on-one with those in attendance, right?
Exactly. And so I've been teaching businesses to do this, whether it's an entrepreneur or a coach or even brick and mortar businesses. I've helped chiropractors, stem cell clinics, right? It's great for them to have smaller events where they can actually interact with people, answer people's questions. And the people, if they're willing to come to the event, are the perfect leads. It's not somebody who's scrolling Facebook and sees an ad, clicks on it. It's like, whatever. If they come to your event, they're interested. I've been able to help so many people grow their business because you're not wasting all this time, energy, and money on things that don't bring in quality leads.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you kind of describe what that ideal client for you looks like?
Sure. So an ideal client for me is someone who is doing a minimum, I would say, of $80,000 to $100,000 in top line revenue, knows what they do, right? Like they have their core vision down, they have products that they deliver, usually higher ticket products. So I like to see $10,000 and above. I've helped people sell up to $50,000 products, a coaching program at $50K that comes with retreats. So you have to already be doing revenue. You have to have your core mission down, and you have to have a list of some kind. It does not need to be a big list, but I would say a list of at least 500, 600 people that have engaged with you. So not the new entrepreneur or the new business owner. I'm looking for people who have a few years under their belt and some sales so that they know how to deliver, because you have to deliver that back-end product.
Yeah, good. And you've got a good specific vision there on who your client is. And that's so important for even beginning entrepreneurs and business owners to understand, having a clear vision on who your prospect is, who your ideal client is. You know, I speak with a lot of folks who have a very general, broad idea, and that is so difficult. And I speak that from experience as well. You know, one of the lessons that I've had to learn is have a very specific idea on what that ideal client looks like. So I'm glad to hear you say that. I wonder what, I have my own thoughts on this, but what do you hear as some of kind of the biggest myths or misconceptions about doing speaking events?
There are so many. The thing that I hear most from people when I'm talking to them about holding an event is they're scared to speak. Where am I going to get the content? Are people going to show up? I don't like speaking in front of people. To that, I say that's why we start with a small event. If you have 5 people in a room, you're not up on front stage with spotlights on you and a mic in your hand. You can just have a nice roundtable discussion, and it's actually very engaging, especially if I'm working with a chiropractor or a plastic surgeon or somebody with a brick and mortar business. They're used to having a one-on-one conversation. When they do it in a small group, they actually get positive feedback, and the clients almost sell themselves. To speak directly to some misconceptions, one, I should make money on ticket sales. I always tell people, be lucky if you break even on ticket sales. The whole idea is to get the person in the room because you're going to make the sale off the back end. That was my problem when I started. So I thought that's how you made money in events. I didn't know any better. After that first event, when I failed, the next event I sold out was an event of about 150 people. I didn't sell anything, and I didn't speak on stage. I went to a Dan Kennedy event afterwards, if you know who Dan Kennedy is.
Yeah, sure.
He called me an idiot. So he was doing a roundtable, and I thought I was, big stuff. I was like, oh, I'm awesome. I held this event. I sold it out. And he said, well, what did you sell? And I said, I didn't sell anything. He said, well, did you speak? And I said, no. And he goes, you're an idiot. I said, well, why? And he said, the whole point of an event is you're getting the best leads possible, because they're people who come, they're willing to travel, sometimes fly and get a hotel to come hear you. They know, like, and trust you. You should be speaking, you should be selling. So this speaks to another misconception. Well, I don't have anything to sell. I guarantee if you're in business, you sell something, you have to sell a product. You just have to figure out how to package that in something that you can sell at the event. And the third misconception I'll touch on is they're not buying that package in the back of the room. What they're buying is you as the speaker. And this speaks to I'm sure you can speak to this as well. A chiropractor, for example, thinks that people are buying back adjustments. They think that they're buying an outcome of not being in pain. That's some of what they're buying, but they're also buying the chiropractor. If they don't know, like, and trust you, they're not going to come back. They're not going to be a repeat client. And especially at an event, what people are buying, whatever you're selling at your event, if it's a coach who's selling a coaching program, if it's a real estate person who is selling real estate, if it is a chiropractor who's selling pain-free lifestyle, at the end of that event, what people are buying is you as the person. They want to know your personal life. They want to know your story, and they want to connect with you. That's what everyone is really looking for when they're spending money is, do I know, like, and trust this person? Do I have a connection with them? Do I like them? If they like you, they'll buy whatever you're selling, as long as it mildly meets their needs, right?
Right. It's funny when you bring it down to a personal level and kind of take the business aspect out of it, right? Well, I just had to go to the dentist. What were my thoughts about that dentist personally? How did that drive my decision on whether or not I liked him enough to go back to him? Did I trust him?
I mean, the dentist, there's so many things out there that are commodities or commodity-like. Our money can go anywhere to buy X product, whether it's a couch or whether it's dental or whether it's a restaurant, right? Do we like going to that place? Do we like the person that we deal with? Do we trust them? That's going to earn the repeat business. And something that Dan Kennedy taught me was amateurs focus on the first sale, professionals focus on the back end. And you want the most expensive cost in business is getting a first-time customer. The easiest sale is selling to a repeat customer. At a live event, you're basically paying the first customer is them coming to the room. The follow-up sales are your high-ticket sale at the back end, or if they don't buy at the event, you can still follow up with them. If you did a good job and related to them, they'll buy something from you at some point.
Yeah, good point. What do you think is the biggest challenge that the folks face when trying to put together a successful event?
Sure. So the first piece is whenever I talk to people, they're scared because they don't know how to put people in the room. One of the number one calls that I get is, hey, Steve, we have 3 weeks to our event and we have 2 people registered. What do we do? So the challenge is putting people in the room. My 2 fixes for that. The first one is don't try to hold a big event. So many people come to me. I had a conversation yesterday with an entrepreneur that's doing okay. They have some traction and they said, we want to hold an event for 500 people. And I said, well, have you ever held an event before? No. Have you ever spoke before? No. How big's your list? A couple thousand. Well, why do you want to hold an event that big? Because I want the money. Well, let's back up for a second. To hold an event over 50 people, I would say, really 100 maybe, you have to have an AV person. You have to have a big room. You have to have all this stuff, and you're going to spend a huge amount of money. A 100-person event is probably going to cost you 100 to 150 grand to do it right. Any bigger than that, the price just goes up really quickly. And your closing rate at 100 people, this is what I found personally and for my clients. If you have over about 50 to 60 people in the room, your closing rate will start to decline. At 100 people, your closing rate is going to be 20% if you're good, 10% if you're average. That's at 100 people. At a 20 to 30 person room, your closing rate is going to be 30 to 40%, even if you're average. If you do the math on that, everybody can put 15 to 20 people in a room. That's possible.
So with a smaller room comes higher close rates. What do you attribute that to?
Connection, personal connection, 100%. It's also a smaller room is much easier to manage and way less expense. You could do a 2-day, 25-person event for about $1,000, not including your ad costs, but space cost, food, all of that. How many closes of a 10K product do you have to sell? If you sell 1, you're golden. But really, in my experience, you're going to close somewhere, if it's a 25-person room, you're going to close 7 to 15 people.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Are there any tips that you can share? So in addition to kind of shooting for a smaller room, what is it that folks need help with as they are in the middle of an event, in a speaking event, or helping somebody else do that?
Well, to fill the room, the first thing is, this sounds so counterintuitive, but you don't ever drive ads or do marketing directly to the event because nobody buys an event. What they buy is an outcome. Get them interested in the outcome that your event will offer as a lead magnet of some kind, whether it's a free report or a video series that you did, or even just a Facebook Live. If you do a Facebook Live talking about X outcome, we'll use stem cell, for example. If you do a Facebook Live and you're talking about stem cells and how it heals, arthritic knees and helps you feel better, and then look at all your comments, those are the people that you want to market to. And then you can say, hey, would you be open to learning a little bit more about this? And you gradually warm them up to the event. If you just drive straight to an event, that's why you're not selling tickets. So that's the first thing. The second thing is always make it about your customer. Make it about what their outcome is, how you're helping them. Don't make it about you. Speakers that fail and speakers that, like you've been to an event where the speaker's on stage and nobody's paying attention. It's because the speaker is talking about themselves, not about the client and the outcomes and painting the picture and telling stories. And that's the third thing that I would say is your content. People are always worried about content. You should always be telling stories any like story brand, there's a million things out there that'll teach you to tell a good story. Your talk should be 20% hard facts and 80% stories about those hard facts. Because you can't, whether it's a 2-hour lunch and learn style event or a 2-day event, you can't teach people enough to really change their life. You can only open their mind to the idea of it and get them excited. And that's why they buy your package.
Yeah, so interesting you say that. I've actually been working on, learning some better storytelling. I'll put you on the spot a little bit here. Do you have any advice on where to go to learn how to be a better storyteller? A favorite book, maybe?
Man, so the Story Brand does a great job. Donald Miller. You can definitely pick that up. I actually have a course on how to build a presentation that it's free. It's myt.how. It's completely free, but it talks about what are the elements of a good story. So the 3 things that I'll give you is just off the top of my head. So you future pace them into where you want them to be, but so many people start with the end. Where you really want to start is with the pain. So what is the pain that the person in the story, the main character, feels? And that pain should relate to your audience. So they should be similar, because what will happen is if I say, you have a problem, your back hurts all the time, immediately a wall goes up in our head and we're like, my back doesn't hurt. What are you talking about? But if you say, Jack came in and like he was stooped over and his back really hurt, and like you could just see the years like weighing on him, and like his hips weren't working real well, and he had this pain, like he got out of bed every day with pain. Suddenly you're like, oh, I have that pain. Oh, my shoulders are like, everybody that just listened to this probably just straightened their back a little bit and thought about it. So you start with the pain to draw them in. It's a 3-part: pain, epiphany, the thing that fixed the pain, and then what their life is like now. Now you can use that, you can apply that framework to any story. Little Red Riding Hood, right? Little Red Riding Hood was in pain because she wanted to go to her grandmother's house. She had the drama of running into the wolf, and then the epiphany of hiding, and then getting to grandmother's house. You can overlay that pain, epiphany, solution, like the joy, over any story. But the next piece is you want to use as much emotion building words. What did the sky look like? What did the ground sound like when she was walking? What did the person look like? And one of the tricks for this that we learned in grade school is you can add personification to anything in the story. So if it's a tree, start putting physical characteristics on it that a person would have. Disney is great at this. So if you watch any Disney movie, they personify everything. And that's why it's enjoyable, because although there's disconnect in our mind, we want to believe it. And we're like, oh, and it causes us to engage more.
Yeah, sure. And audiobooks do a great job of this. Just, even some of your over-the-top kind of drama type audiobooks. I do a lot of road travel, and so listen to a lot of different books. Sometimes it's just, I just want something that I don't have to pay a whole lot of attention to. But I've noticed that this is the case with some of these drama type books, that they personify everything and just really over the top and giving these very descriptive descriptions, I guess, of these things. So exactly to your point.
I mean, that's the best thing you can do, is make it engaging. Make the stories engaging, and people are like, well, what do you do? So that's it right there. You just personify it, add emotion words, and add drama. Like you want to open up little drama loops about like, ooh, what's going to happen next? Because that's why we love television. That's why we love books. That's why I love movies.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think Russell Brunson does a good job of explaining this as well. I just finished reading Expert Secrets, his latest book, and he talks a lot about that as well. And it's interesting. It's something that I think everybody does anyways in their just daily normal conversation. We tell stories, but for some reason, when it comes to incorporating stories into our business, it gets a little bit tough. We kind of forget those natural storytelling abilities we have. And at least that's the case for me. So this is of big interest to me right now. So I'm so glad that you have brought this up. I wonder if you can give a bit of a case study on one of your clients and how you've helped them to get through this process to help get an event out there.
Absolutely. There were 2 ladies that came to me. They're in the mommy blogging space. So when you think of that, you probably don't think that there's a huge amount of money there. They both do okay. They both have blogs that generate a couple $1,000s a month. They do pretty well with it. They wanted to teach other moms how to generate an extra $500 to $1,000 a month. So when they came to me, they had this idea. They're making money in their own business. They've also taken on a few one-on-one clients. And they said, we want to hold a small event. They really resonated with the idea of a small event because they weren't confident necessarily in their speaking ability or in putting on the money that goes into a large event. I said, great. So we sat down, and their biggest pain points were they were self-conscious about speaking. They did not want to be salesy, which I hear that quite a bit. We want to sell, but we don't want to be salesy. And my answer to that, my direct answer is, if you're doing sales the correct way, sales are something that you do for somebody because you're enriching their life through whatever you're delivering to them, instead of pushing something on them that you want to sell them. And they really resonated with that. And their mission to help women make an extra $500 to $1,000 a month part-time so that they can pay for their kids' college or take extra vacations is a really good mission, and that attracts women, which is much better than having to push on them. So we started working together, and we built out what their coaching program was going to look like, how it was going to be delivered. And then we kind of worked backwards from there. We designed their entire story arc for their event. We designed one of the big things that I do with people who are nervous about speaking is we write the closing presentation together, and they give it to a camera. They upload it to YouTube as a private video. They send it to me, and I go through and critique it, and we go back and forth. So with them, we did that a few times. At the end of it, they feel a lot more confident because they've given the speech several times. I've gone through and critiqued it. I do that with almost all of my clients to make sure that it's spot on perfect. It also helps them with their confidence. After that's all done, we looked at their marketing for the event, and we were able to fill their event. We ended up with 16 people in the room, which is right on par with what they wanted. They actually had 19 people registered. 3 people didn't show, which is normal. I always tell people that you're always going to have no-shows. 10% is kind of the industry standard. So 16 people in the room, they went through everything, and they ended up closing 11 people on an $18,000 offer.
Nice.
You do the math on that. In complete transparency, they did not charge that all up front. They did payments. The ladies left with a little bit, believe the number was a little bit over $91,000.
Yeah, nice.
For a weekend's worth of work. Their total cost for that entire event was about $1,400.
So if you put kind of a big red bow on this whole thing, and you're talking to people to help them understand how to put together an event, what do you think would be like the key piece of advice for folks to remember?
Just do it. I mean, there's an a talk you can find on YouTube where the guy's just like, just do it. And everybody that I've helped hold an event, they're like, I wish I would have just done this. So don't try to hold a big event. Set a goal of 10 to 15 people. If you're a business owner and you're listening to this, you know your content. Don't teach though. Pick your pieces of your content, pick stories that explain that content. That will help you do your event. Just do it. Just figure out, reach out to past clients, reach out to anyone who would be interested in coming. I guarantee you'll be able to put 5 to 10 people in a room, and just do it. Like, the worst that happens is you lose $1,500. In the world of business, that's not very much money, but I can guarantee that's not going to happen. Like, everybody that I've ever talked to that has done this has walked away with at least a couple sales of a high ticket product, and it's really helped revolutionize their business.
Yeah, those things we fear the most are usually blown far out of proportion to the reality of it. So that's great advice. I wonder, you mentioned Dan Kennedy a bit earlier, but I wonder if there's been somebody else in your past that has really influenced you from a kind of a business perspective and how you conduct yourself as a businessman and entrepreneur. Has there anybody been like that in your past that's there for you now, kind of at least in spirit?
Sure. Man, I'm a student of history. So when I started, Dan Kennedy was the first person I studied. That led to Gary Halbert, and then Frank Kern, and then Russell Brunson. Paul Hartunian. I study a lot. I love learning information. Probably the people that I listen to the most right now, Russell Brunson, ClickFunnels World, he's a person of the utmost integrity. He definitely sells. Some people are turned off by that right away, but if you look at his life and his mission in life, he really has a heart for entrepreneurs and business people, and he wants to help. I really, really resonate with him quite a bit. His books are great. I mean, you mentioned Expert Secrets.
Yeah.
ExpertSecrets, Secrets, both great business books that will give you a completely fresh outlook. Somebody else that I really resonate with from my restaurant days, but has played over into this, is Danny Mayer. He's the gentleman behind Shake Shack. He's a big New York restaurateur, but his whole thing is service to other people. And that really resonates with me. Like, I always teach people, give. Like, if you're giving away content and you're helping people, that is going to come back to you 100-fold. And that was Danny's whole thing when he started his first restaurant in New York. It's why I love the service industry so much, because you're making people smile, you're making people happy, you're improving the quality of their life. And if you do that in business, if you do that on the stage, if you do that as a speaker, going back to speakers who are successful, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, probably the 3 biggest speakers of all time. They're the big speakers because they made people feel good. And they drove sales because people wanted more of that, not because they had a whole bunch of technical knowledge. And that's, I know I'm not trying to teach too much or go back into it, but technical knowledge, so many people just want to teach on stage. Tell stories, inspire people, make people feel good, give, and people will just flood to you.
Yeah, it goes back to what you said in the beginning. It's making that connection, that human connection, that one-on-one connection is what I think is probably most important in all of this. Some great advice there. I really appreciate you jumping into that. I'd like to change gears just a little bit here. You familiar with the Proust Questionnaire?
I'm not.
Okay, Marcel Proust was a French author from back in the early 1900s, and he has this list of like 20 questions, and according to Proust, answering these questions reveals a lot about a person. Now, they're really simple questions. I promise I'm not going to like put you in a compromising position. Pretty harmless. Just answer with the first thing that comes to mind, okay? You game? All right. What is your idea of perfect happiness?
Wow. A cup of coffee in the sunshine on a beach.
Love it. Cream and sugar?
Black.
All right.
I lived in Italy for a little bit.
All right. Good. All right. Which living person do you most admire?
Wow. I would probably have to say my mom.
Why?
She's honest to a fault. She has a ton of integrity, and she was the hardest working person that I knew.
Awesome. Here's to moms. What is your greatest extravagance?
Probably I have an espresso machine, which...
Speaking of coffee.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with it, makes amazing coffee, but the capsules for it are about $1.25 a piece. Every time I drink about 4 cups of coffee a day. And I'm like, man, like I have a coffee pot right next to it. Some days I make coffee still, but I would say that's one that comes to mind. That's a pretty good one.
All right. Yeah, that's cool. I'm a big coffee fan myself. We're in this thing right now where we do a lot of pour over coffees.
Pour over is great.
All right. What is your current state of mind?
Positive. Always positive. That was one of the biggest changes for me, honestly, when I left corporate world, was like, you just have to you have to be positive, and you have to focus on what you want and where you are going. Anything else that gets in your way is a roadblock. Where you look at is where you're going to go.
I like that one. Which talent would you most like to have?
I wish I could sing or play an instrument.
Me too. Have you ever tried? I mean, have you taken lessons or anything?
Yeah, I took piano growing up. I wasn't very good. I took guitar. I wasn't very good. I sing all the time, but I'm horribly off tune.
Yeah, I'm a shower singer, strictly.
Yep.
But I sound great in the shower. You just have to take my word for it. Who is your favorite superhero?
It's a good one. I'm not really big into all the Marvel movies. I've watched like 1 or 2 of them. I mean, Iron Man, like the very first Iron Man, who didn't want to be Tony Stark? The guy has got all of it. Like, he's super smart. He's good looking. I don't know if I appreciate his attitude. I like watching it. I don't know if I want it. We'll go with that.
We'll accept that one. Finally, what is your motto?
How can I? It's a tattoo that I have. So anytime you run into a problem, anytime, whether it's a challenge or something that I want out of life, like those are the three most powerful words that you can ever ask is how can I do X? How can I give more? How can I be more? How can I do more? How can I grow my business? How can I go on the vacation that I want? Like it puts you in a frame of mind of like, how can I do something instead of that's not possible. I don't think I can do that. That's probably it.
Yeah, I like that. It's much better than I can't. Hey, this is great. Steve, I appreciate your willingness to play along, and I think Proust would approve of your responses there. Listen, how can our listeners learn more about working with you?
Sure. So I have the myt.how is a free class on monetizing your tribe. It teaches you about events and presentations. Phillip.Werner.com. That's Phillip with 2 L's. That is my site that has a little bit about me on it. It has all my products, as well as a link that you can book a short 15-minute call with me if you have questions. I would love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for spending some time with us today. Steve Werner, Monetize Your Tribe. Thanks again for joining us today.
No problem. It's been my pleasure. Thanks, Rick.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Business Innovators Radio Podcast. Until next time, keep innovating.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.